Hello, welcome to Yoga with Rach. I'm Rach, thank you very much for joining me today. So for this week's practice, we're still staying in that element of Pisces. This is week 2 of the Pisces series. The sun's still in Pisces, even though the moon has well and truly moved out of Pisces, but we may still be feeling in that sleepy, dreamy sort of state of mind. So today's practice, or this week's practice, we're going to be going into a restorative or yin practice. So really up to you. If you're going more for yin, you might not need or want to use all of the props that I've got out here. Just be mindful that you want to try and find comfort in the discomfort. That doesn't mean forcing yourself to stay in a pose for a longer amount of time. But you want to find an element of feeling that you are stretching or moving your body in a certain way as you move into and hold a pose for a certain amount of time. If you want to keep it more restorative, then we want to make sure that the pose is as comfortable as possible, it's as relaxed as possible, and that's when we can really utilize all of these props to make sure that we can support our bodies completely. So you might need to pause the video in a moment to go and grab a bolster or a pillow, cushions, blocks and bricks to make sure that you've got everything near you that you may possibly use during this practice. And we're just going to take a few moments seated, so just popping the blocks and the bolster to one side, finding a comfortable seat. You might be moving back into the Matsya mudra that we practiced last week, bringing the hands into Namaste Anjali mudra and taking the right hand on top of the left. Palms are facing down, fingertips might be slightly lifted, thumbs are pointing out to the side as you release and relax the arms so the hands are roughly in front of the hips. Closing the eyes and bringing your awareness to your breath as you start your practice. So taking these few moments to check in, listen to your body. The art of Pisces, if we're completely in sync with it, is that element of compassion, of healing the mind and the body. So can you bring that essence into this practice, using the support of the props where are required, without forcing or pushing your body? Are you feeling that you need more sleep? Just feeling tired in general? That can be that essence of Pisces moving into your mind and your body. So just honour that if you need to. Allow yourself to rest as much as possible. Taking your time, moving slowly as you release your mudra. You might be inviting some movement in, releasing the fingers, drawing circles with the hand, giving the shoulders a little shrug, gently blinking the eyes open. So the first pose we're going to move into is our fish pose. You might do this, you might feel quite comfortable to move into fish pose with no props at all. Just be mindful if you need to release the pose and move back into it. You might use just the brick type of blocks and place them underneath the shoulders or in between the shoulder blades and underneath the crown of the head. Or you might be using a bolster and maybe one of the brick blocks or maybe the flatter block. So using the height that works for you, I tend to stay with either the second or the first height of the blocks. So if you're setting up to use just the brick blocks underneath the head and in between the shoulder blades, make sure they're fairly close, starting with the knees bent, arching back, and just use the hands to keep the blocks in place. If that feels uncomfortable, you might place a blanket or just sort of a throw to keep the block a little bit more comfortable. If that doesn't feel comfortable, you might be using a couple of pillows or cushions instead, just so you've got that support as you arch back. Remember, in fish, you've only got the tailbone and then essentially the crown of the head touching the mat. If that's where you feel comfortable, you might keep the knees bent or extend the legs away, relaxing the feet, or you might prefer to have a go with the bolster and or one of the other bricks. So if you're using the bolster, take the bolster roughly where the other block was, but this one will go along the bottom of your shoulder blades to help you to find that arching back and releasing your head back. So you're completely arching, but you're now supported by the bolster, finding the right height for you with the blocks. Hands might rest onto the belly. If it's comfortable, they might drape out to the side. And again, whether you're using the props, whether that's the blocks or the bolster in a block or no prop at all, knees might stay bent, feet on the mat, or you might extend the legs out and let the feet relax. So you're finding that fishtail element for fish pose. Closing the eyes, giving your awareness with the breath. Checking in, listening to your body, just moving or adjusting if you need to make sure that you're as comfortable as possible. In a moment, I'm going to slowly find a way back up to sitting. If the legs are stretched out, gently bending the knees, placing feet onto the mat. You might want to take the hands just to the back of your head, just to support your head as you lift your head up off of the mat or the blocks, tucking the chin to chest. Slowly lifting all the way up. You might be able to reach to the legs and slowly walking the feet forward and lifting your head and your back up. Maybe wrapping the arms around the legs, tucking the chin to chest. Just taking a few moments here whilst you've moved up to sitting. So just moving the props out of the way, we're going to be setting up for our head to knee pose. So you might use the bricks, you might be using the bolster, you might be using a mixture of the two. So we're going to stretch the legs out, keeping your left leg straight, bending the right knee, dropping the knee to the side. Foot might stay by the shin or by the thigh. Have a little bit of a wiggle around on the tailbone, so you're sitting up nice and tall without tucking the tailbone under. Bringing the bolster in. We can rest the bolster just into the chin or the chest. We can hold on to the bottom end of the bolster and just start to nudge the bolster forward as you move into that forward fold. Keeping the back relatively straight. Remember, because it is a restorative practice, once you relax, you can start to tuck your chin into the chest. Always stay up higher first, rather than going straight for a forward fold if you know in a vinyasa or have the practice that you can get your forehead down to the knee. Take your time finding your way there in a restorative or yin practice. So from here, you might be resting the bolster on the leg. You might be bringing in one of the blocks as you fold forward and using the block as a prop. Or maybe resting completely on the bolster. So find where it feels comfortable for you, focusing on the breath. Arms can relax to either side of your leg. Pushing through the palms of the hands as you slowly lift your head, your chest, your belly, placing any props to one side. Stretching that right leg out, might be giving the legs a bit of a wiggle, pointing and flexing the feet as we then change sides, keeping your right leg straight now, bending into the left knee as you drop the knee out to the side. Foot might stay with your shin or sliding out to the ankle. Have a little bit of a wiggle around on the tailbone in case the body's moved slightly. And finding what feels comfortable for you. Don't go straight for where you just were, so one side might be quite different than the other. So we could bring the bolster in underneath the chin, leaning into the chest, holding on to the bottom part of the bolster. As we start to fold forward, hinging at the hips, we might start to fold in a little bit further. We might be pausing here, so don't worry if both sides are slightly different. Maybe it's comfortable to place the bolster on top of the leg, using the block as we hinge in a little bit more, placing the forehead onto the block, or maybe even resting completely down into the bolster. So just finding that point where it feels comfortable for you. Don't rush to get too far into the pose. Take your time to move down through those stages. Hands can relax down by either side of your right leg. Just closing the eyes, focusing on the breath. Taking your time as you slowly press through the palms of the hands, lifting your head, your chest, your belly, and placing hand props to one side, stretching the legs out, give the legs a bit of a wiggle, pointing and flexing the feet. From here, you might need to use the bolster and or a block, or just a block. Do use something to help support yourself if you find pigeon pose is not completely comfortable, so you can really find that comfort within the pose to keep it a little bit more restorative. If it's a pose that you find really comfortable, then you may not use any props to keep it a little bit more of a yin practice, as we'll be holding this one for a little while. So placing yourself into tabletop, keeping the bolster to the left side, and you might place a block to the right if you need the block underneath the thigh, or you might bring the block in front of you and just use the block underneath the forehead. Bring your right knee through in between the hands and stretch your left leg back. Slide your right foot across, so the right foot's in front of your left thigh. From here, you can bring the bolster in, so it's underneath your hip, sideways, front of the shoulder, and supporting the chin or your head. You might be looking over one shoulder to make sure that's comfortable. Maybe you're just using the block to support your forehead. If you feel that you're rolling over to the right, using one of the blocks and just wedge that underneath the right thigh to keep you nice and flat in that back. Let the arms relax. Make sure there's no weight going into that left knee, left leg. Closing the eyes, bringing your awareness back to the breath. Sliding the hands underneath the shoulders, pushing through the palms as you lift your head, your chest, your belly. If you have got the block underneath that right leg, just placing it to one side. So you start to bend into the left knee to slide the right leg back into tabletop. Either leaving the block at the top of the mat if you were just using the block, or rolling the bolster over to the right side if you were using the bolster, taking the block to the left. Moving into pigeon pose with the left leg. From your tabletop, bring the left knee through, so it's in between the hands. Slide the foot in front of the right thigh, extending the right leg back. Bringing the bolster in if you're using the bolster underneath the right hip, the side waist, and resting the front of the shoulder, the chin, the forehead, or lying on the cheek. If you feel that you're rolling over to the left, then using the brick underneath the left leg, just to give yourself that little extra support. Closing the eyes, letting the arms relax, focusing on the breath. Sliding the hands underneath the shoulders, gently pushing through the palms as you lift your head, your chest, your belly, placing the block to one side if that was underneath the left leg, and sliding back into tabletop. So from here we're going to move into a belly down twist. Using the bolster, you may also need to use the block if you want a little bit of extra elevation for your head, if you prefer to lie with your forehead facing down rather than twisting to the side. So we're just going to set ourselves on the mat, so the bolster is moving from the middle of the mat towards the top of the mat, sitting with your right hip to the bolster, so that may mean you're turning away from me for this moment. The knees are bent and your feet are by your left hip. Just gently twisting around to face the bolster, hands either side of the bolster, and walking the hands towards the top of the mat as you bring the belly down and the chest down. And see what feels comfortable for you in your neck. So you might be resting on the chin, you might be using the block to support your forehead, you might look over the left shoulder, or you might continue the twist and look over the right shoulder. Once you find that point where you feel comfortable, closing the eyes, bringing your awareness back to the breath. Sliding the hands underneath the shoulders, and pushing into the palms as you lift your head, your chest, your belly. Keeping the hands on the mat either side of the bolster. It's easier to move us than lift the bolster up and twisting round. So we're just going to lift the hip, the tailbone into tabletop, turning around to the other side. So you're placing your left hip down by the bolster. Knees are bent with the feet to the right. Hands are still at either side of the bolster as again lowering the belly and the chest down. See what feels more comfortable in your head and your neck. So you might be resting on the chin. You might be using a block to support the forehead. Maybe you're looking over your right shoulder, or you're continuing the twist and looking over your left shoulder. Once you're settled, closing the eyes, just bringing your awareness back to your breath. Sliding your hands underneath the shoulders, you're pushing through the palms as you lift your head, your chest, your belly. Go back up to sitting, placing any blocks to one side. If you have got a bolster or a nice padded cushion or a rolled up mat or a rolled up blanket, do just turn it to the side so it goes across one end of your mat, a little bit of space at the end. We're going to use that to support the legs as you move into Savasana. So extending the legs over the bolster, finding the bolster with the back of the knees, really bend the knees so the heels find the mat. As you lie onto your back, hands might rest onto the belly or they may fall softly away from the hips, palms facing up or down. Lying on the back of your head, you gently tuck the chin in towards the chest, closing the eyes, bringing your awareness to the breath, just allowing your mind, your body to relax completely as you move into Savasana. bringing your awareness back to your breath. Starting to invite movement back in, so you've got the fingers, the toes, gently stretching the arms, the legs. Slowly bringing the knees in towards the belly, wrapping the arms around the legs. Pausing here for a moment or two before rolling onto your right hip, right shoulder. Starting to blink the eyes open, bringing your awareness back into the room. And slowly finding your way up to sitting. Thank you for joining me for this restorative, dreamy yin practice honouring our Pisces series. If you enjoyed the practice, do give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. I'll pop a couple of links here for some other of my videos. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.